So, what do you guys? We just start with questions. What do you guys want to?
Well, we got a little bit from the video about you guys and, what you're doing and about reels and headshots. Firstly, you're both in New York?
Yeah,
Hope
so
everything is-
we're both currently quarantined in New York,
Yeah.
but also are both based in New York City. Now, I've been here for 7 years since graduating from Northwestern, and John's been here now.
Yeah, and we're both quarantined at Justin's apartment. My roommates are gone. I'm from Jersey, so I could go home like Natalie, but my 96-year-old grandfather lives with my parents, so it's like I'll stay here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my question, I guess, is whatever this pandemic has happened, like getting to New York, moving there from somewhere else and kind of trying to start your careers. Did you go with something in mind, or did you go and then, start looking, and how kind of did that process go?
Start looking like for an apartment,
Like for work, I guess.
Okay. What I started doing was, well, luckily I'm from Jersey, so I would go home for fall break and spring break pretty much every year. And when I would always make sure to go to the city. And now looking back, I would like go see shows and like I should have like taken classes, but it's fine. But I did start auditioning in New York. I want to say I did Straw Hats my sophomore year. And then senior year, I auditioned for what was going on over spring break, because it's still audition season over spring break, just to like get a taste of what was going on. And then, yeah, when I got here, I just kept auditioning. But I was lucky to book the Cinderella tour while I was on spring break senior year. So that worked out well. I ended up missing a week of school because I stayed for callbacks. But yeah, I guess I don't even know how I found out about that. I think Backstage. So that's a good place to start. If you don't have a Backstage account, get on it and like familiarize yourself with it, because they post audition notices for all around the country. And right now they're doing a lot of remote submissions for things that you can film at home and send in. So Justin and I have done one of those, and we're going to do a few more, because if you have the account, then you can just submit for remote stuff.
Yeah, this might actually be like kind of weirdly a better time for auditions, because everyone has to do it from home. So there's like, much more possibility there.
It's interesting because you're totally right, but it also means that the availability to audition is much higher, which means that if you have the means and an hour and the willpower, then like anybody can submit an audition. So for these auditions before, where like, John had an appointment for the Hairspray tour that's going out in the fall, and he had the appointment for a while, and it was going to be an in-person audit, like an in-person appointment as normal. And then when all of this happened, it switched to tape. They just wanted to see all the material on tape, which is great. But we had it, and we taped it and it went great. But we had a conversation between ourselves of, okay, they are no longer seeing 40 guys in a day for this in person. Now they're just watching tape after tape after tape after tape. And you have to set out to make these tapes interesting or different. And I'm not talking about working outside in, but you sometimes have to go like, okay, what's a creative way that I can think about this scene or this song in a way that other people might not immediately impulsively put this on tape, because I do want my session to stand out. So it is a great time for auditions, but at the same time, you're up against a ton of people, because these remote auditions like John are talking about are available to anybody.
Yeah.
And then in terms of me coming to New York, I'm from Long Island, so I had the same proximity benefit that John did. I came to New York certain that it was just going to happen for me in no time, because that's the kind of person that I am. And weird when it took 6 years to book Broadway. So it was interesting because I got here and I didn't know really what to do, because for the first time your structure is gone, really.
Yeah.
And again, we've talked extensively about creating your own structure, and the businesses, Jay Shoots and then Film Your Reel that we started together, have provided us with this awesome amount of structure that really helps to increasingly delineate our days and our to-do list, et cetera. But I came here and I gained like 15 pounds because I was like, I don't like doing. And eventually I figured it out. I auditioned and I booked kind of quickly, but a lot of regional work. And then I also went on a tour. I did the tour of Nice Work If You Can Get It in 2014-15 with the same producers that did John's tour of Cinderella.
We've weirdly had the same career so far.
Yeah, I did a tour with this producer, and then I did a show. I did Elf at Paper Mill, and John did the Cinderella tour with the same producers, and then did Cinderella at Paper Mill in the same slot. So I like feel like good about his trajectory, but that's sort of how I came. But it's been a really interesting journey of giving yourself grace and saying that it's a marathon, not a sprint, because it really is.
Yeah. Are you from Park City then, Jane? Are you from Park City?
I am, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know. I always thought it was interesting. Sorry, Chessie, I'll get to you.
You're fine, you're fine.
I did always feel lucky that like going to school at the U, there were definitely people there that hadn't been to New York or was a far removed thing. And so I always felt lucky that I could go to New York when I was home just to remind myself of what it is. And so if you can't get to New York, I think, like I was saying, I think backstage is a good way. Just the more you can start immersing yourself in like, okay, what is my life going to be like after school? Because it's like, I loved my 4 years at the U, but it's easy to get caught up in the moment of like the day to day and the year to year and like classes and stuff, which is all wonderful because they're all tools to help you, but help you what? It's reminding yourself like, okay, what do I want to be doing after this? Because the more you think about that ahead of time, I think the better mentally prepared you'll be for when you get here.
We also like, we will try and drop these like little pearls of like, I don't know, like Hansel and Gretel wisdom along the way. Something that we talked about yesterday is, I think when you move here, you should know who the casting directors are and what they cast. And by that, I mean like knowing that like, if Telsey is sort of like this big behemoth over here that casts all these things, and Tara Rubin's office does this, and Stuart Whitley does this, cool. I sort of have a lay of the land of who's doing the projects that I'm interested in. And then if you're savvy about this, we literally said this yesterday, there's enough content out there now of Benton Whitley talking about what he loves to see from his actors, and Mary Sugarman talking about what she loves to see from her actors. And I'm not saying, again, it's not about working outside in, but if you can micro adjust when you do eventually get the opportunity to go in front of these people or put a tape down for Benton or Mary or Tara or any number of people, Benton literally said in a thing that we watched yesterday, he just loves confidence. He'd rather you go big, make a choice, because he can always pull you back, but he can't tell if you're a storyteller if you tell no story. And so, cool, he wants somebody who's just gonna go in with some big ass choices. Great, that's something to know about Benton. It's a little just pearl of wisdom you can keep in your head. And I think
it was on backstage.com, just like a free video.
Yeah, John does not work for backstage.com.
I don't.
He does.
You should get sponsored, I think, after this.
Hey, honestly, at this point, we're like trying to ride that trajectory. So we'll just write that down.
We will manifest that. We will manifest that.
We love a manifest.
We do.
Thank you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course.
What were you going to ask,
what I was going to ask is, so you were talking about earlier too with John's tape and with this too about like, you know, sort of trying to find those little ways you can make your tape specific to who you're sending it to, or like for the job or something that'll make it stand out. And well, I guess sort of some more specific examples of that, and also like how you balance throwing a little bit of that in while not like letting it take over, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I'll talk about that specifically. So I had an appointment for Link. So it helped that I had sides. I had 3 scenes and 2 songs to film. And like Justin was saying, he's like, okay, well now they're going to see however many guys got this appointment, that many number of guys doing all of these sides on camera instead of in person. And I think advice that I definitely feel like I heard while in school, you guys probably have, is like, you have to get their attention in like the first 15 seconds. Otherwise, like they don't 7.
That's what Denny says. Denny always says 7.
7-second rule, first page of her new textbook. It's so fun.
Wow. Get us 2 copies, please.
Well, I think the same goes for self-tapes, especially if like Can I buy that book?
That's on Amazon. You actually can. Matty Cooper right here.
Oh my God.
They should send you.
I'll ask Danny. Well, anyway, so with a self-tape, I think the same thing applies. And a lot of the times, and I've done it, you'll see a video start and it's like, or we've had clients come in to film for their reel and it's like, you have to, just like in person, you have to have that moment before. Otherwise, if you're like, the video starts and you're standing there waiting for the music to start and then you're like, it's like you've already wasted 4 boring seconds. And then, so with my link sides in specific, Justin was like, okay, well, how about you like actually pretend like, not like it was a movie set, but like enter, or like not just stand, not have every video start with me in the middle, like waiting 3 seconds for like my cue or something. So the first side was Tracy getting hit by the dodgeball in the gym scene or whatever. So we started with me like off frame. So it was like a blank screen, and then I ran on and like looked down to see her and then like brought her up. And that already is more interesting than if you are just, the tape starts, Tracy's over here and she's there the whole time and you're just like, Tracy, are you all right? Like, which is probably what a lot of their tapes were going to be.
Yeah, and then 2 other examples, mostly because we recorded it together for several hours that day. 2 others that I love that John did, and Jessica, because you asked for specific instances, and I think these are microcosmic versions of things that you could employ in any self-tape. For instance, at the beginning of It Takes Two, which was, they had him record the whole song, which I thought was rude and unnecessary, but I was like, you don't get, John was like, I don't have a Tracy, I don't have a guitar. I was like, right, so we need to figure out a way to specify this 3.5 minutes so that they don't want to like claw their eyes out watching 40 guys do the same. And John did this really great thing. He started the song facing completely upstage, away from the camera, and used this very long intro. We talked about, I was like, okay, so if you don't have Tracy to sing to this entire time, what if you have the studio of girls and the whole audience, and you can use these people to land thoughts? And what he got was this really immersive experience of storytelling, because he had somebody over here who he'd land this to, and then over here, and you could reference this person again, but ultimately come right back. It was just so exciting. And it really helped we didn't have to work on the arc of the song. Like, we didn't have to play the arc because you were just playing the specifics of every verse, chorus, etc. Because I don't think you should ever be in charge of playing beginning, middle, and end, because then you're not actually doing the thing. And then in another scene, it was at Motor Mouth Maybell's record shop. And it was the moment where a very public moment turns very private for Lincoln Tracy. And so we had this idea that he would be off having this moment of people, and the moment was, you can't do this. Like, it was this, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, and then it was this turn, and the public became instantly private. And it was great, and it just told us, like, boom, there was urgency, boom, there was stakes, and all of a sudden, this was an actor who was using all of his technique and playing to the top of his intelligence as both an actor and a human to give Link some real brains. And
not just Link, like, make the video look different than the start of all the other videos they were going to see.
Totally. It served both purposes.
Because then it's like, even if it's not right, like, I don't know what, like, in that party scene, like, I don't know if he was talking to other people. Like, it doesn't really matter if it worked with the scene, just as long as, like, they're like, oh, wait, my eyes are processing something different than what I have been watching over and over again. It at least makes them pay attention to begin with.
Yeah, as long as they know you're a storyteller, as long as they know you're a storyteller, you can be directed any number of ways. Just go out and actually tell a story, because people are afraid of making any choices, because we feel like we're told to be this like musical theater singing robot.
Us included. Like,
yeah, we all start like, we'll do a take and I'm like, well, that was boring as hell. Or I'm like, I'm just gonna try something else. And then most of the time that something else is like, oh, and I had fun doing that. And that's how you know also if after that thing you're like, oh, I enjoyed that. That's weird, when you probably had success.
Yeah.
So those are just some examples, Chessie, from the most recent tape.
Did that help?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay,
cool. I have a question.
Yeah.
That's kind of perfect for both of you, and kind of only pertains to me. Sorry, guys. But since you guys are both from the New York area, when you graduated, did you come and live with your parents and kind of save up, or kind of move right to New York? And like, because I'm just wondering, I graduate next year, if I should try to save up for an apartment now, or if you think just taking the train is fine, or
How long is the train ride for you?
like 45 minutes.
Okay. I mean, that's not bad. I'm from South Jersey, so it would be like a 2-hour commute, 2+ hour commute every day, so that was not an option for me really, or I didn't want it to be. So I just moved right. Actually, well, no, not when I was done with tour, I moved right here because I knew when I graduated that I had tour coming up in October. So I had like a 6-month period after graduating. So I just lived at home. I did not go. There's no reason to live in New York yet. So
for me though, I'm 45 minutes away on Long Island, so I'm actually in a very similar situation. I never moved home, mostly because I sort of wanted to dive headfirst into the thing. And in my case, that meant spending a little more than I should have on my first apartment with some roommates from college. And in hindsight, I know now that was like a lot of money to spend for the first few months that I was in the city. But I didn't commit to a long lease. It was essentially like a short-term furnished apartment deal. And then come September, once I graduated, I joined on my first lease. But I knew that moving to New York City was more than just about auditioning and pursuing this thing, but it was like a chance to start the next phase of my life. And the next phase of my life included me planting some roots and figuring out what my social life looked like, and continuing the adulting that I had done for the prior 4 years. And I think there is this safety when you're close proximity wise to the city because your family's right there. So I felt like I had the safety net even though I didn't go home. So I'd say if you have the option, I mean, start saving anyway, because that money's going to come in handy whether you do stay at home for classes and lessons and laducas and all those things.
That's what I was going to say. Even regardless of where your home is, start saving, start saving now. Because the more money you have when you go to New York, the longer it'll go before you run out.
It's an expensive city, y'all.
Really quickly.
Yeah. It's pricey.
And I think that's something that I don't know. I haven't worked with Eric or David. He actually set his Nice Work tour.
Yeah, David worked with Kathleen Marshall on several of her shows, so he set the tour of Nice Work. And then after we did Nice Work, so please tell him I say hi if you see him. And
on Zoom.
And he
on a call with him.
He also went to Northwestern.
Get on Zoom right now.
Join now. He went to Northwestern, which is where I went. So we had that fun alum thing. And then I did Ever After at Paper Mill with Kathleen Marshall directing, and and David associate directed. I don't know what he did, but he was there with her helping out. So he's a great guy. I think him and Eric are great gets for the year.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know if they talk about, but I think this ties back into one of the challenges of Salt Lake being so far removed from New York. Remind yourself that New York is like so much more expensive than Salt Lake City, and it really is killer. So the more you start saving up. Hi, Sydney.
Hi, John. How are you? Sorry.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was in a meeting, but I'm here now. I'm excited.
Low stakes. As you're talking about New York. What was the question?
That's exciting.
I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can start saving up now, do it.
Yeah, I guess, and because I was thinking logistically, it might be not work that well if I have to go at 5 a.m. to casting calls and the first train is at 6, and then that's a whole schlep, and it's
Yeah.
And another thing is for me so I got done tour last May, so I've almost been in the city for a year, and honestly, people say it takes 5 years to get established here. It definitely takes at least a year, and Justin's right. I am now starting, kind of, quarantine's weird, but was just feeling like I was getting into a groove. It takes a while to figure out where you like to go in the city and what you like to do, and trying to figure out your own schedule is really challenging. And so I think not the sooner the better, but it will take time, and you have to be nice to yourself within the first year, especially in allowing yourself to try and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. finding the balance between work and auditioning is really hard. And Justin knows it's something that I struggled with this year. And like, yeah, so I think the sooner you get to the city as opposed to living at home, like it will help you figure out your flow for the city and like how you're gonna survive. And
yeah, and it's a scary thing. And no one's saying that moving to New York City is this like easy sort of like, I'll try it. But you know what, if it's baptism by fire, regardless of when you come, then come sooner. And oh my God, everyone is Jane Moyes. Then come sooner, because I think what John's saying is totally right. It's gonna take, it takes a second to adjust.
Yeah. Thanks.
yeah.
Of course.
Who else planning on moving to New York?
I'm going
Yay,
back
okay.
to Seattle for a bit.
Great.
Seattle's amazing.
Yeah. And Zoe, you're not sure.
I'm like, I'm from there. I can live there for free while trying to work for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what I want to do or when I want to do it. Just for some background, I'm from a super tiny ratchet town in Arizona. And so like Salt Lake is like a big city for me. And I've only ever visited New York one time 3 years ago during my freshman year of university. So I just feel like there's so much that I don't know exactly how to dip my toe in the water or what kind of resources are going to be good for that, what's not going to be good for that. Like, I don't know, what would you guys suggest is the most efficient way for somebody like me to go about getting to know where to even start?
Well, I'll say one thing before we even answer that is, just because this Q&A ends whenever it ends doesn't mean that we go away and we're not still here as resources or friends. And
Yeah.
I know you probably crossed over with John in school, most of you, if not all of you, but I know I'm new to all of you, but please consider us both resources. And so if you want to find us on Facebook or Instagram, honestly, we're on too much. We just started a TikTok, so catch us on that. But seriously, if you have any questions after this is done, please feel free to reach out. We love helping. And now I need a second to think about my answer to that question.
I think what Justin is saying, I think moving to New York presents its challenges for everyone, regardless of whether you're a small town or we're from New Jersey or whatever. And I appreciate you explaining like Salt Lake being a big adjustment for you. I think New York would then be a big adjustment from Salt Lake, but if you've been and have had a taste, then like it's not for everyone, and that is okay. I think a good place to start is not jumping on a lease. I did sublets when I first got back from tour, and it's a nice way to figure out. I did 4 1-month sublets, so I lived in 4 different apartments over the summer, and it was a little by the end of that, I was like, okay, I need to live in one place.
Yeah, and his moving man was like, I think you're good now, so let's put this in.
Yeah. But it helps you figure out, it's not super committal. So like you could move for a month or something, and just test it out and see if you like it, if you don't. But again, I think coming with as much money as possible is beneficial. And one thing that I realized after graduating, especially after moving to the city, was like, damn, there were so many good resources in Salt Lake that are a fraction of the price of New York resources. And so use them. Like if you're planning on taking class at like BDC or STEPS when you get to New York, take class at Millennium in Salt Lake City. Like I kick myself all the time for not taking more class there. And I remember looking back and being like, I used to think like, oh, I'm too busy, or like, I don't have money for that. And it's like, it's $10. What is it? $10 for a dance class? How much is it now?
12. I think
12? Okay. Well, it's like, that's a drink or something. I could have afforded to take dance classes while I was there, because then when you get here, it's like a class pass is like $200 for 10 classes at Broadway Dance Center or STEPS. And it's like, that adds up quickly. And so, and also like taking voice lessons, if you love your voice teacher at the U, awesome. Find someone else like in Salt Lake that is not super expensive and can also just like broaden your horizons, or like maybe teach you something else like pop, or I don't know. But there are plenty of resources in Salt Lake to then, I think, prepare yourself for coming to New York that you can take advantage of while still in Salt Lake. I was literally planning, I was supposed to do something rotten, and I was going to be coming to Salt Lake in 2 days, but that is postponed. And I was getting ready, like I was fully planning like, okay, when I get to Salt Lake, I'm going to like budget out like each week, like I'm going to buy a class pass at Millenniums that when I'm in rehearsal, like I can take there at night. I'd already reached out to Jeff McLean, who I took with outside of the U my last semester at school. And it helped me personally a lot with growth, just having someone outside of the program that like is more poppy and whatever. So I was ready to like go back and do cheaper training. And I think that is a great stepping stone. And I know it's a lot when you're in school because you have all your classes and it's like, it's so much to focus on because the workload's already there. But then when you go from that to moving to New York and having no structure and like Justin said, trying to figure it out all on your own, it's hard to then regiment like training. And so I think that is something you can practice. Like if you stayed in Salt Lake this summer, Zoe, or something, I don't know what your plan is, but trying to come up with your own, like, okay, what's my work schedule? What's my like artistic fulfillment schedule as well?
I think those are two really great logistical, not jumping on a lease immediately and also like training in Salt Lake, which is this amazing opportunity that you guys currently have.
Yeah.
My brief answer is sort of a little bit more mindset based because this could apply to Zoe, who doesn't know which city yet, or anybody who's going to go to New York, or if you want to go to Seattle first, or Chicago is an amazing theater scene. My biggest thing about participating in this business as a career, and I said marathon, not a sprint before, is about staying happy, healthy, and sane between your gigs, because I actually don't think it's the gigs that make the career. I think it's about the time between them that defines what your career actually is. And it's really hard, especially in New York City, to stay those three things: happy, healthy, and sane. So if you can practice ahead of time what brings me joy, whether that be my morning cup of coffee, or that meditation that I'm obsessed with, or that yoga class that I just can't miss on Wednesdays, or treating myself to that, like whatever brings you joy. Health is of utmost importance, especially now. I mean, please, we're in a literal pandemic. So working out, not having anything to do with what you look like, but everything to do with what you feel like. In whatever way that means to you, again, whether that's Pilates or yoga, or you love to pick up and put down heavy things. We love a gym moment. So practicing being happy, healthy, and then sane, which is relying on your community and checking in with your family and having somebody that you can vent to in a completely judgment-free, safe space. Like there are so many different ways, a myriad of ways to say these three things. But for me, going back to like happy, healthy, and sane. How do I function as a fully formed human being between the auditions and the jobs and the things that seem like they mean so much when they don't, in comparison to your well-being?
Yeah. He said that a lot. And it's true, because there's the periods between shows. You never know how long it's going to be. So you might as well do your best to take care of yourself so that you're still a performer when you're not performing. And it's hard to remind yourself of that, especially when you're auditioning. It's like maybe I'm not good. And like Justin, we bounce off each other all the time, and having good friends that push you and you can vent with, but not commiserate with like all the time. You want people that are going to motivate and continue to push you and remind you that it's okay to not be in a show all the time.
That is awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was super helpful.
Good. You're welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, that was long-winded.
Anything I love any of the questions, and Sydney will get to in just a second, but also like if you have headshot questions too, if you have putting yourself on tape questions, like nothing is off limits. And we're not doing anything else today. So that's a lie. RuPaul's Drag Race is on tonight. So as long as we're done by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're fine.
And we have a yoga class at 5. I woke up this morning and I was like, my gosh, we have a busy day. We've got a Zoom, a yoga class, and RuPaul. Like,
is it Erica class?
Busy day. Sydney, what is your question?
I would love to hear about if you have agents, what your experience has been with agents, just the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go first.
So Northwestern showcased. I graduated again from Northwestern, for those who joined later, in 2013. And we showcased in the city, and I signed with my first agent from Showcase. I signed with an agency called DBA, Don Buchwald and Associates. They're a big, old school agency. They're good, but they felt like this, like a really old washing machine that takes like a lot of electricity and a lot of they weren't high efficiency at all. That's what I always felt. I was like, I'm in a really old machine. And it was good. And literally in the dead of the night one day, my agent at DBA left to go to Gersh, because just like us, they're always trying to pursue better opportunities, whatever. So she was literally poached by another agency, and she moved, and she couldn't take any of her roster with her. And Buchwald was pissed that she did that. So they literally like chopped her roster. They broke my contract. It was not cute. I was doing a job that they had negotiated my contract for. It was just all not great. And I was embarrassed because I felt like I was dropped by my agents, although I wasn't. It was like this weird circumstantial kind of thing. So for about a month plus, I was without an agent. And in that time, I saw that the National Tour of Nice Work, if you can get it, was having auditions. And I reached out to my old agent and I said, hey, I just need this one thing from you. Can you please give me the personal email address for Gail C? And I want to just get myself an appointment. And she sent me an email. She was like, you didn't get this from me. And I got the personal email address for this casting director because I knew I was right for the show. I knew it. And again, for those who entered late, I think highly of myself sometimes. So I sent this casting director an email, and she had seen me a couple of times before, and I was like, I want to be seen for this. I know I'm right for it. And she said, great, submit yourself on Actors Access. I'll make sure you get an appointment. I did. I got the appointment, and I booked the tour. So, but I did that by myself on my own without an agent in the month plus that I didn't between Buchwald. My second agency was called Block. They're mostly known for having dancers. They cater to a lot of dancers in New York. And I've been dancing since I was 8. So that was a good fit for me for a couple of years. I worked pretty consistently with them. And then I got the opportunity. I did a show in the city. I did Babes in Arms. And one day my co-star was like, my agent wants to meet you after the show. I met her agent, who then very quickly became my agent. And that's an agency called Abrams. And I've been with them now for 4 years. So they're my third agency in New York City. And so I also would say that you may have as many agents as you have apartments. And it's good. But something I always like to say is like the agents get 10% of your money. So they're going to do 10% of the work. So you need to do 90% of the hustle, 90% of the emailing, going to the EPAs, going to the ECCs. Most of the jobs I have booked in New York City have not been from appointments from my agent. They just haven't. Even this last, yes, I'm in Tina on Broadway right now, which is wonderful. That appointment did not come from my agents. It came because I have a really great relationship with the casting director, who I've now known for years. And he texted me out of the blue one day and was like, hey, how's your Australian accent? And I was like, honestly, pretty good when I'm messing around. He was like, cool, I'm going to call you in for Tina. We're adding a swing track, and I think you're good for it. And I was like, well, I trust you if you think so. And that's how the appointment came. My agents didn't even submit me for it. I found out later on. I booked it on my own. Of course, I'm paying them for it because that's how this goes. But that's my experience with agents. I'm very happy to be represented because I do feel it affords me certain opportunities that it might not if I wasn't. And it's nice to know that I do have people working for me to negotiate my contracts and push me for jobs that, I might not have the opportunity to go in for otherwise. But that's my personal journey with it. And again, always around after this to answer more questions about agents and stuff, just because I'm sure that's a topic on everybody's minds. But
yeah,
you?
This is a good bouncing point because I'm complete opposite. I do not have an agent. I would like an agent. The U did not have a showcase, and so I did not get an agent when I graduated. Which, when you get to the city, though, you find out lots of schools do have showcases. Some don't. It's okay. And a lot of people do get an agent from a showcase, but there are lots of showcases. So agents are going to so many schools' showcases. And some people get signed and some people don't. And it's really not make or break. I did in September, I met with 4 agencies. And the meetings went really well. But at all of them, they were like, great, just like send us your stuff. And I was like, what do you mean my stuff? And they were like videos, anything you have of like singing, dancing, tumbling, like whatever, show footage. I literally had nothing. Like I had Dem Lab stuff that I did not want to use. And I had I had done a tour and I didn't have I don't know. It's hard to get your hands on show footage, I've realized. And so we filmed some singing stuff, and I hired a choreographer that I liked to do dance for me, and I got a videographer and filmed like a minute long dance clip, not a full reel with like different things, just one clip. And I sent it in, and I didn't get an agent. It was not, I don't know why. They don't tell you. They don't even answer. But it's okay. And I think a lot of it has to do with I didn't have correct material that like showcased me or my personality. And that's a big reason that Film Your Reel came into existence, was because I was like, this is ridiculous. There are so many people that, like, in the city, you meet so many people that are like, yeah, I need to update my stuff. Like, I don't have anything except from like when I was in college. And that's everyone. But agents are hungry. Agents and casting directors are hungry to see you perform like online. Like, they just want to be able to Google you and find it and be like, oh, great, here's a video of them singing, or like, here's a dance clip. And this is something, honestly, that I've struggled with since like September, since that happened. Because I was like, well, this is weird. I just want to perform on stage. Why do I have to like now be good at like performing on camera? That's something I know nothing about. And so that's been a process, and it's still something I'm working on. We are, especially now during the quarantine, luckily, since we have the studio is here in Justin's apartment, we've been able to film stuff for my website, which I'm actually working on right now. So it's not up, but I can send you guys, or I can send Chessie the link when I'm like done with it. Because what I've realized is it's better to have something up than nothing. Because if at any point in the past 6 months somebody's tried finding me, well, there are lots of John Petersons, A. B, they're not gonna find really anything of me online. And as long as you have something, it doesn't have to be amazing. And that's something I've had to like tell myself over and over again. It's like, just put something out there, and then once it's done, then you can update and finesse. But like, just get the first thing done, and it'll be a huge stepping stone. Anyway, then I would like to, now that I have this website, and I've been able to book without an agent, thankfully. And so having other credits, I think, will also help with getting an agent. And it's something I would like to have for next audition season. Because after I didn't get an agent, I was like, okay, cool. So I'm going to do audition season like January to March without an agent. And I worked really hard, and I did book some things, and that are hopefully going to still happen. We'll see. Yeah, then I'm gonna, right now, during this quarantine, I would like to finish putting up my website and then send it to the agents that I did meet with and be like, hey, here's a much better representation of myself, and like, see what happens. Like, what I liked about Justin's story earlier about when he didn't have an agent, you really do have to not be ballsy, but like,
you gotta
just
be ballsy.
Send in, yeah. I mean, but like,
you
you don't have to be ridiculous, but like, send emails to people, like, contact casting directors. Like, the worst that happens is they say no,
or they don't respond. I mean, if they don't have time, they won't respond. But that is truly the worst. No one's going to blacklist you for being eager.
Yeah. And so you have to really be your own advocate and send in stuff. And I knew, like, the link appointment I got for the Hairspray tour, I knew the producer. And so I was talking with him, and I was like, yeah, I would love an appointment. And he like CC'd me in an email with the casting director and was like, here's John, watch out for his audition.
And the casting director who's casting this project is the old assistant of my agent at my agency, because this world is this big. So and John was like, oh, Sam. And I was like, Sam, one, is my friend and has been for years because we're the same age. Because that's something they also don't tell you, is you're going to grow up with these people, and other people, not everyone continues performing. They're going to become agents and casting directors and writers and directors. So just like be kind and respectful and a good human to people, please, because they're going to hire you one day. But so I was like, Sam, I know Sam. And so then I texted Sam and was like, can't wait for you to watch John's video, because like, why not? Why not be an advocate for my boyfriend, who I also knew was going to turn in a great video? And he was like, oh my God, can't wait to watch it. And it's like those little things that you just stay top of mind for people. And yeah.
What was I don't remember I don't know. I had a story based off of that. But yeah, you just have to, it's scary, but I think that's a big thing, is just like really, being your own advocate and finding emails of people when you can. And I've been able to, again, without an agent, I would like one, because then I can get appointments. That's, I think, the hardest thing is I go to auditions that I've found on Backstage. But when there are like appointment only auditions, unless I know the casting director, you can't audition. But you can also, without an agent, develop relationships with casting directors as you audition over and over and they start to see you. They can just bypass an agent and just be like, oh, like I have this upcoming project. John's good for that. I'm going to like get him an appointment. And that's happened a few times, which I've been really thankful for. But yeah, so agents, everyone has their own journey. I'll let you know when I get one. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Yes.
So with your guys's, I hate you. With your guys's, like obviously your business, making reels and everything, and also being performers, especially the senior class, we've gotten the chance to do a lot of Q&As with like agents and choreographers and things like that, that David has connections with. So we've been able to ask a lot of these questions. But in your guys' experience filming the reels and also being performers, what has been helpful to have in the reels? What maybe hasn't worked? Things like that.
Like in terms of material?
Yeah, just because I feel like, I don't know what Kimmy's perspective is on this, but some of these Q&As, I feel like we've gotten a little bit conflicting information from a couple people of what they think, like even if you need a reel versus if you don't need a reel. So just kind of hearing what, and the best way to market yourself as well without also, one quote I like is, accept your box, but be willing to break from your box. So like also finding a way to not fully put yourself in that box.
Right. I think one of the things that we mentioned in the video, or I think the biggest thing, is trying to have stuff in your reel that you feel like is authentic to you and does show your personality. Because a lot of the times you will see stuff where it's like, again, I mean, you guys have had to put stuff on tape now. It's not necessarily fun or like an enjoyable process. And so a lot of the times that reads in that it's like, I'm standing here awkwardly and like, this isn't great. But I think if you are able to show joy, even if it's not like 13 great clips of you performing, like that's okay. If it's like a minute or less, or just like little snippets, obviously not too short of snippets, but things that you can do to like show add your, I don't know, your special touch to it is important in my opinion. Like I was doing lots of research, I was stalking other people's websites and seeing like, okay, well, what do their reels look like? And one of my favorite ones was this guy, Jonathan Savage, that is my age, and I've been following him on Instagram. And he last summer like worked at the Muni and Sacramento Music Circus and worked at the Kennedy Center this year. And I was like, what is he doing? Like, what is his thing? His dance reel on his website is like a YouTube video that he made, I think literally in his like yard at home, of him doing like toe touches, but he just has this really sunshiny personality, and that's what it captures. It's not like this crazy perfect curated thing. It's just like him being like, here's some like fun steps, but you can see that he exudes happiness and joy, and you can tell that comes across in his performing in his reel. And I was like, Okay, cool. And I think that comes across to people. It reads well.
Two things is something to respond to something that you said was, you've heard conflicting information. Do you even need a reel? Blah, 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 blah. I'm a human who never had a reel. And I don't think that's okay anymore in 2020. I think in 2013, 2014, it was fine because social media was not what it is right now. And we weren't expected to be accessible 100% of the time. So I commend John all the time for the fact that he is so, adamant about getting video on his website and all this stuff, because it's something that it literally kind of like scared me, and I didn't enjoy putting on video. So I never did it. And I was fine, but I don't think that's acceptable anymore. And even if you don't have a fully fleshed out reel, just having a clip of you singing, if dance is your thing, having a clip of you dancing, if you have that monologue that you love and you're just like, I'm super connected and I love this, put the monologue on tape, just do it. And like John said before, and I love this, he's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be curated. Get something up. You can always update it later, but just get something up. And then this idea of, being in a box and honoring it, but not being afraid to break it. Another word for box, type. I have so little interest in type and that conversation. And I'm not saying that you were type is good, but with my headshot clients, something I always say is I want to avoid that word entirely. Instead, I'd love to play up and explore the colors of your human, of who you are. So who John is when he finally gets home at the end of the day and it's been an exhausting day and he shuts his door and he exhales for the first time and it's a truly vulnerable, open, quiet down moment. I want a picture of that person, or I want to see that person in your reel, and that has nothing to do with what type anybody might put him in for or anything. So I think the idea of a box and not box, that's another whole conversation that one could have. But I think there's no excuse now in 2020 to not have video footage of some kind accessible, social media, on your website, all that. And then a more specific answer is find material that you love. And this speaks to the joy factor that John was talking about. Material that you're good at and that showcases and highlights what you do and you think you do well, but stuff you love. In this break, while nothing was really happening, I got an appointment for my agents. Some casting offices are just using this opportunity to refresh their files. And this was an office I've been in for many, many times. And they don't need clips of me, but they were we're just using this chance to refresh things. So if you've been in for us a lot, maybe use the chance to do something show us a side of you that you've never shown before. And y'all, I did a weird, vulgar monologue that I was all right, you've never called me in for something this, but I'm going to do it because I can do it well and it's fun. And I'm going to sing a song that I've loved forever and have never used in an audition because I was afraid of it coming across as flamboyant or what it might say about me. Now, of course, there's things to be fixed in both the monologue and the song, but overall, I was really happy with what I put down because they were two pieces that I wanted to do, because I kind of said and just did what I wanted to do. And yes, I'm 28 years old and it took me a long time to get to the place where I'm just whatever, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do me now. I wish I had adopted that a little bit earlier on. It's very hard to, because you're well, what do they want me to be?
Yeah. It's still something I struggle with all day, every day. So if that's something that you guys relate with, not that it doesn't go away, but you do start to, oh, what did we hear yesterday? It doesn't get easier, you just get braver. And I really liked that. And if you haven't, this is a whole nother rabbit trail, but the book, You Are a Badass, has really, I think, helped Justin and me in really just being able to own, yeah.
It's unmistakable.
This is our Bible.
Truly.
But it is, I think, really, yes, helpful for performers in being okay, I am talented, I am good, and I'm going to give you me, and that's enough. And it's a process, but yeah.
I saw a question here, but I don't know how to.
Yeah.
Hi.
Kimmy.
So
Hey.
I feel like a struggle that I've been having with videos is the need to be perfect on video, because I feel like the mistakes, it's well, I can just do it again. And if I'm sending in a video or I'm posting it, it should be the best take or the most perfect technically, vocally, acting wise. But then also there's a part of me that loves the mistakes or the little flubs, because sometimes I feel like it has to be very hi, you sing and then you're like, thank you. But I also think it's like kind of nice if the intro has like, I don't know, like a bit of a laughter and, you know, like moments where you can show yourself that you would usually show in the room. But how do you get that humanness across without it looking like not polished or unprofessional, but then also, again, like incorporating that humanity, but also being like, look, I'm very good at what I do.
I think my immediate answer is, if you can take care of all the things that you know you can take care of, get your lighting right, get your audio crisp, get all of the logistics right so that the video looks as good as possible, and that's not even a factor. You know your material, you've dominated the mechanics of your song or your monologue or whatever, you know what you're about to do, and then you set out to do something and are willing to surprise yourself at some point over the course of whatever the take you're doing is. I think that's how you incorporate the humanity into what may otherwise be there's no perfect take, and you could do it 14 times and you're probably never going to be perfect beyond, you know, manipulating it in post-production, which is not something we're advising. So if you already just release the idea that like none of these are going to be perfect, I need to do something that I'm proud of, maybe something where I surprised myself in the middle of it and I made some spontaneous organic choices, which are always exciting, whether in the room or on tape. And then you're just happy with the production of everything. I think that's all anybody can ask of you. That we literally heard somebody say yesterday, they're like, as long as we can see you and we can hear you. That's all they want. They just want to be able to see you and hear you. Anything beyond that is like, cool, bring yourself, show us what you got. That's my immediate.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kimmy. And I've been trying to figure out ways that we can incorporate that into the videos we put out for people and Film Your Reel. Because it, like I said, I think capturing personality is really important. And it's like, how do you do that leading up to a song or something? And I think what you just said, we don't have people slate in them, but I think the slate, if that's what they want you to be doing, great. I think showing your personality during that is a good time. And in terms of trying over and over to get a perfect tape, one thing that we realized that I think neither of us were expecting when we started filming sessions with people, they're half-hour time slots. And having this kind of knowing there's a time restriction, I think has helped clients put out good material, because they sign up and they're like, okay, great, I have a half-hour time slot. I have to have like my stuff already ready. Like I need to know these words and I need to have my intention, because I have a half hour to like, I want to get 4 songs on tape in a half hour. And when we first started, we were like, we'll see. We don't know if that's like enough time or how that's going to work. I think giving yourself a time limit adds just enough pressure where it's like, great, know that you have to be done in this amount of time. And so instead of doing like 18 takes where like you're halfway through and you're like, oh, that was bad, I'm going to start over. Be like, okay, great, I have half an hour. That means I'm probably going to get in like 10 takes. I might as well try and make them all good and be prepared before I start. And then having the time limit when you're done the half hour, it's like, okay, great, these are my options and I like this one the best. It just, because you can play so many mind games with taping for hours and hours, and then you're like, I'm not good. Like, I get that. So, but I think that was something we discovered with like, people showed up when it was like, I got a half hour. Okay, great. I know I want to get 4 songs done. And they would do like 2 takes of each. And they're like, great, I like the second one. Let's move on.
Also,
and it was cool.
And what proves the point is when we did the Hairspray sides for John, like we spent 3+ hours on them because we could.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity, we had the time. And yes, we created an excellent tape that showed him off really well, but like, I'm certain we got takes that were usable in the first chunk of each song, but we had the time and we had the means, so why not do it? So I think John's point of like a self-imposed time limit is an excellent, and it's also a great way for life. Like, I'm gonna sit down for 30 minutes and do this thing or whatever. It's just a great way to implement some structure, like we were talking about earlier, in your day, in your tasks, in your errands, in your self-tapes.
Yeah. And I know the semester is coming to an end, but if you guys are saying you have to submit videos and stuff, I think try doing it with a time limit and challenge yourself. But it means putting in the work ahead of time so that when it comes time to film, it's like, you know what you're doing, and you've got these choices ahead of time. But then, like Justin said, surprise yourself with like natural, let whatever you want. Yeah.
Also, if you do have stuff that you need to put on tape before the end of the semester and you want any sort of feedback, you can send it to us. We'll watch it and shoot you a couple sentences back on just like what we think. Anything from like, if you can find better lighting, that would be great. Or like, oh, I love this moment. Like, whatever. We're here and we're happy to help.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That would be so amazing. Thank you.
Of course. Anything else?
We have time for like one more question if someone wants to like get in there. Or we wrap this up.
I have one. I have one more. So Chessie and Kimmy and Sydney and I are kind of starting this new thing with Open Door, which is kind of giving the opportunities to students within the theater program and a lot of other creative programs at the U to do things that they're not getting from school. And so my question to you guys, I guess, would be, what is something that you kind of wish you had gotten that you didn't get from like the programs that you were in, that you wish you would have gotten at that time? Like if it's, knowledge about a certain subject or...
Yeah. That's a really good question. I'll just say the first thing that comes to my head. When I was in school, I tried writing a grant to get a musical theater dance emphasis program going. And my plan was to buy everyone, whoever was involved, like class pass to Millennium, because they have great dance training that expands your style. And actually, you know what? This is a big one. If you, it expands your style and it helps you with picking up choreo. And I know things are different with Eric's class, or I don't know how the dance works now, but that's the biggest thing that I lacked, was picking up choreography. We did not learn enough choreography. And that's all it is in an audition, especially when you're non-union. They go through, that dance captain teaches like 3 equity groups. So they've already taught the combo 3 times, and then they get to the non-ec people and they're gonna teach it in like 10 minutes. And you have to try and do your best to perform, but a lot of times it's not enough time to pick up the choreo, and it can be very frustrating. It doesn't happen all the time, but there have definitely been times where I'm like completely lost in the choreo because they teach it so fast just because they need to get through. And so I wish I had more choreography like practice. And so when I was in school, the grant didn't end up getting passed. But like I said, now it's like, well, I could have set aside money on my own to like take class at Millennium to do that on my own. And I know it would be helpful because you're in a program for musical theater, for that to have been there already. But that was one thing for me that was lacking, because even if you're not a dancer, let's say you go to the singer's call first, the next step after, if they want to call you back after you sing, it's going to be a movement call. And so, and then at that point, they're not going to teach it in 10 minutes because they do want you to succeed. But still, I think picking up choreography is this weird specific skill that you literally can't learn doing anything else but picking up choreography. So that's one thing for me.
Yeah, that's great. My answer, I have one tangible one and then one flip side that I think might be a nice way to like wrap everything up. For me, it was vocal technique. I've always been a competent singer, but I did not feel taken care of at my school where musical theater vocal technique was concerned. So I love the advice that John gave before about reaching out and seeing who's available in Salt Lake. And I'm certain there are, I know for a fact because John studied with people, but seek somebody out. I'm sure you can get some, I mean, y'all, voice teachers in New York City can cost $220 for an hour. So yeah, that's like a real thing. So while you're in a place where they probably cost less, I would seek somebody out that could help you with just making sure your technique meets you where you're at right then in terms of preparation, and that you do feel okay waking up for those 5 a.m. open calls, because by 11 a.m. you're going to be fine, all that stuff. So just vocal technique. And I mean that if anybody's more of an actor, as if we're not actors, but if anybody does more like straight theater here, your voice is still just as important. It's still your instrument, all that stuff. So vocal technique, getting some lessons. The flip side is, and I think,
I'm gonna say one more thing before you wrap up. Going off of that, are you guys singing more pop songs now? Is that something they have you do?
Learn.
No,
That.
it's not really a thing.
Do that.
Play
Learn
around.
pop music, because like 50% or more of auditions, they want a pop song.
My literal Broadway debut is in a Tina Turner musical, and I am the most Gershwin human you've ever met. And for the first time, I'm not singing like "Hey There" from the Pajama Game in an audition. So they were like, bring in a great 70s pop song. And I was like, cool, I'll learn one. So I found one that I liked. I like prepped it on my own. I sang it for John, I think 43 times. And I was like, we'll see how it goes. And it was—
Which is not like advisable audition technique, but it worked.
But it was the only option I had because I did not have anything ready. And which is why we're saying like, get anything pop in your book, something folksy. There's so many amazing singer-songwriters out there that their songs translate great to piano. Music Notes is replete with options. That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, add pop music. Because then, like, even then, because they want specifics. I remember in one audition, they were like, what's your pop song? And I was like, proudly, after working on it for a long time, because I didn't get it, I didn't work on pop in college, I was like, Velvet Rope by Rita Ora. And he's like, great, do you have something like Elton John? And I was like, how many pop songs do I need? But they just want options. So like learn as much music, and going back to what Justin says, sing stuff you like to sing. And that's what I'm working on. I just had a voice lesson on Monday, and we worked on 3 pop cuts. Keep working on the musical theater, but I know you're getting that in school. So something, I don't know, like pop master classes maybe or something.
Yeah.
And then the last point I was going to make is, and I can only say this candidly because I've spent so much time with John and talking to John and now talking to all of you, is because I assume that if you're asking the question of what do you feel like you wish you got more of, that you might feel like there's some things you're not getting. I 1000% felt like there were things that I didn't get in my college experience. So the first thing I want to say is I think you make compromises with any program. There's simply no perfect program. It took me a long time to make peace with that.
One person said, a guy I work with at the gym, everyone at the front desk of my gym has a BFA. And we were talking about our schools, and I said some grievances, and he was like, John, we all cried on the same dirty floors. And
that is so funny.
It's true. Like everyone in New York City got their BFAs, and they all had things that they did not like about their programs.
And so my flip is what I did get out of my school, because I did not have everything handed to me on a silver platter. It was not one of those programs. It was a place where I really had to fight tooth or nail to get the dance training that I wanted, to get those extra voice lessons, to squeeze as much as I could out of this program. It taught me to fight. It taught me that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It taught me that there is a polite and respectful way to write that email that says, hey, I know this class is closed and there's no more spots. I really need to be in it, and here's why. Make your case, fight for yourself, and be your own best advocate. Because this city, any city, Seattle, Chicago, Salt Lake, in its own way, this business is hard. It's just not easy. And so you need to advocate for yourself as best you can, as much as you can, as polite and respectfully as possible. But that's what I got out of my school. And I'm assuming that's what you guys are getting from the U too, because if stuff is not being handed to you, you're learning how to fight and scratch a little bit. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you need that.
And props for keeping an open door, like what you guys are doing
This is
with
amazing.
these master classes. I think it's awesome. I wanted to do that. And so it's cool. And also, I think last thing,
read it.
Read this. It will really help you be your own best advocate. It really will.
Great. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Oh, welcome.
It was awesome. We're very, very glad to have you. And we'll post the link for people who are here to this in the group, so you guys can rewatch if you want to scroll back.
You can again find us on Facebook. I'm Justin Max Schuman on Instagram. He's the John Peterson, the John Peterson. And we are here for you guys, however you need.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so great.
Thank you guys.
Oh, and
Bye.
David Schmidt told me to tell you hi, John.
Thank you.
Before we
Oh,
go.
yes. I say hello. And I will be, as of now, Something Rotten is hopefully going to open Pioneer season in August. So I will be there in August.
Great. All